Okay, so Bitcoin companies and fine art collections. You probably wouldn't put those two in the same sentence, right? But what if I told you that corporations have been collecting art for like centuries, and that Bitcoin native firms might just be on the verge of becoming the most important art patrons of our time? Let's dive into this really fascinating intersection of culture, capital, and code.
It all kind of starts with this one question. Why on earth would a massive bank, say like Deutsche Bank, own tens of thousands of artworks? I mean, it's not just to spruce up the office lobby. The answer reveals this powerful, long-standing corporate strategy that's now getting a major digital upgrade.
And believe it or not, this is not a new thing. The whole tradition of companies collecting art goes all the way back to the 15th century. One of the first was Italy's Banca Monte dei Paschi di Siena, which was founded way back in 1472. And what probably started as just, decoration, it quickly became a massive symbol of status, success, and cultural clout. This all boils down to a key concept called cultural capital. It's this intangible value a company gets from being associated with culture. It's not really about the price tag on the art itself, but what that art says about the company. Its identity, its values, and frankly, its stability and vision for the long haul. You can see how this idea has just grown over time. It starts in Renaissance Italy, then there's this huge boom in 1950s America as companies realized they could make these big cultural statements. It hit its peak in the 80s, and now? Well, now it's just an established part of corporate strategy, with collections worth billions and billions of dollars.
And the reasons they do this might surprise you. It's not really about a quick buck or some simple tax write-off. No, companies use art to push their strategic goals forward, to connect with totally new types of clients, and to build loyalty with their own employees by creating a more inspiring place to work. It's an incredibly powerful reputational tool.
For hundreds of years, this whole story was about physical art, paintings, sculptures, you name it. But then, blockchain happened. And it sparked a revolution, completely shaking up this old tradition, starting with the wild, wild ride of the NFT market. $69 million. That was the jaw-dropping price for a single piece of digital art by the artist Beeple, right at the peak of the NFT frenzy in 2021. I mean, that one sale just perfectly captures the insane hype and speculation that took over the art and tech worlds.
But what goes up often comes down hard. The market didn't just have a little correction. It basically fell off a cliff, collapsing by over 90%. The annual turnover went from almost $3 billion to just $24 million. The bubble had officially and spectacularly burst. But here's the thing. That wasn't the end of digital art. Not even close. This massive reality check was actually a good thing, a necessary maturation. The hype died down, the get-rich-quick crowd moved on, and what was left was a core group of serious artists, collectors, and builders who really believe in this stuff for the long run. They're not collecting with a lot more thought and purpose.
Now, inside this digital art world, we have to make a really important distinction. Because for a while, the NFT market was all about platforms like Ethereum. But there's this whole other, totally distinct art scene that is native to Bitcoin itself. And this one is way less about hype and a whole lot more about the culture and history of the movement.
You can almost think of it as two parallel universes. You had the Ethereum NFTs from that 2021 boom, which were often all about hype and the cool new tech. But then you have Bitcoin art, which has much, much deeper roots. It's driven by the core ideology of decentralization, censorship resistance. It really reflects the unique history and even the meme culture of the Bitcoin community itself. In fact, Bitcoin's art history goes back way further than most people think. As early as 2014, a protocol called Counterparty made it possible to create assets right on top of Bitcoin. This led to groundbreaking projects like Rare Pepe's back in 2016, which are now seen as totally iconic pieces of crypto art. And then, of course, the ordinals boom in 2023 just blew the doors open, bringing a ton of attention to art inscribed directly on Bitcoin. So, given this really rich history and all this cultural weight, there's a super strong case to be made for Bitcoin native companies to step up and become the new patrons of this whole scene.
And this is where we circle all the way back to our original question about why a bank owns art.
And I love this framing for it. Just like the Medici family in Florence funded the great artists of the Renaissance, today's companies are poised to become the new Medici. This isn't just about buying some cool art. It's about taking on this long-term responsibility for nurturing and literally shaping a new cultural movement.
So why is this so critical for them? Well, a curated art collection gives them cultural legitimacy. It shows they're more than just finance and tech nerds. It creates these shared symbols, these identity anchors for the global Bitcoin community. It helps them attract the best talent, people who want to build culture, not just write code. And when you do all that, you increase the value and appeal of the entire ecosystem. It's a form of soft power.
And look, this is more than just a cool idea. There's actually a clear playbook, a blueprint for how these companies can start building this cultural legacy and maybe even spark a kind of digital renaissance. Let's look at what they can actually do.
The key is to be strategic about it. Companies can start their own museums, whether it's a physical space or an online gallery. They can fund scholarships and prizes to support up-and-coming artists. Imagine an annual award for the coolest ordinals project. And this one is so important. They can fund the creation of archives to document and preserve the history of this art so it's not lost to time. But, and this is a really big but, you can't just wing it. For this to have a real lasting impact, you absolutely need professional expertise. I mean, a company would never manage its money without a CFO, right? Well, it shouldn't try to build a cultural legacy without a professional curator. Art historians and museum experts are vital to make sure the collection is credible, valuable, and actually tells a coherent story.
And this is what makes this moment so unbelievably exciting. It is a genuine, historic opportunity. The Bitcoin art scene is still so young. Its culture is still being written. The canvas, you could say, is still mostly blank. The companies that jump in now have the chance to not just collect history, but to help write it.
And I want to leave you with this just awesome, provocative thought from David Bailey. It perfectly captures the potential scale of what we're talking about. If this digital patronage thing really takes off, the cultural legacies being built today on the blockchain could one day make even the most legendary collections of the past look small. It's a bold, amazing vision for a new chapter where culture and capital come together to define what's next.